everyone, and welcome back to the Black Expat Experience, a podcast and live show highlighting lived experiences of Black expats around the world. I am Kendall Tyson, your host, licensed therapist, a fellow Black expat who currently lives in Beijing but is on vacation in Texas and about to return to Beijing. We have another great episode in store for you today. I say that every time, but it's always true. And I would love for you to welcome our newest guest today, Tia Savonne Goolsby. Hi, Tia.
Hi, everyone. Kendall, it's so good to see you. And thank you so much for having me on this episode. I'm so excited.
You are so welcome. Thank you for agreeing to be a guest on the show. I am so eager to hear about your experience and how you've kind of worked that into the career that you're currently engaging in. And so before we get started, I kind of want you to give us a bird's eye view into like who you are, what's going on in your life right now before we dive a little deeper.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Tia Savonne Goolsby. I have a bachelor's degree in digital media production. I'm also an author and I am a travel coach. I'm a mother of three. I'm a wife. I'm an expat. That's why we're here on the Black Expat Experience. And I enjoy traveling. I enjoy a culture exchange. I enjoy helping other people to enjoy the luxuries that comes with being an expat abroad. So that's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
I mean, a little, a lot. I think one of the tenets of the work that I love is the importance of like cultural responsiveness and identity understanding and development and things of that nature. And when I listen to the little elevator pitches, not even little, I don't know why I keep saying little.
Yeah, no worries.
Black thing, probably. When I listen to people share their elevator pitches about, just a foray into who they are, I always hear so many different intersecting identities, which makes me so curious about some of the similarities that we all have. However, the manifestation and expression look so different. So I am so interested to know more about where you are, like where's your current like chosen country?
Right now, my family and we're located in Merida, Mexico. I know a lot of you have heard of Merida, and I can tell a lot of you have heard of Merida because I can see you guys here in the streets. You'd be surprised at how many other melanated people I run into, and I'm like, I think, we're just kind of chatting, but I love it. So right now we're currently in Merida, Mexico. I'm a family of 5, my husband and I, plus our 3 children. So this is where we are.
I love that. So you're seeing like the shift in more Black people coming.
Oh, yeah. Yes, actually, just last week I went to there's a little corner store by my house, and I just went out to go get my regular fruits, and I'm like, oh, like just so happy to see another Black family. They just had one daughter that I saw, but it was so good to see them, and I know that they were here. So I'm happy to see that we're exploring and getting out. I didn't get a chance to talk with them in depth because I was just grabbing some fruit and they were headed out. But I love to see other people with the same skin complexion with that melanin in it, to see, what they're doing and just to kind of link and exchange numbers.
I love that. I'm wondering, are you seeing an uptick in families, couples, like singles, when you're out and about? I don't know how you can determine that. Well, I would imagine with their family, it's easier to recognize.
Yeah, I would say it's a mixture of both. Like the family that I saw, it was just a husband, a wife, and a daughter. I don't know if they have more children, but those were just the ones that I saw. But I've also seen single women as well. I met a good friend, actually, when we first came back to Merida this February. I met a lady. We saw her downtown. We exchanged numbers, and she and I are still good friends today.
Wow, I love it. So this is that's one of the things I appreciate most about creating these global communities that we find ourselves in, is that the genuine connections that you're able to create. They span time zones, zip codes, countries. If if both parties or multiple parties are really about staying connected, building community and relationship with one another, which kind of helps us to, thrive as we these other countries our chosen homes.
Yes, absolutely. I would totally agree with that statement. I enjoy just having that exchange with other people, knowing what their reason is for travel, whether it's just vacation or exploration or even relocation. Didn't mean to rhyme there, but it just kind of came out that way. But just kind of getting a feel for what their reason behind the move is, or behind, a tour, if you will, what it is.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So I know just a few minutes ago, I talked about like the differing and intersecting identities that you were able to share. And when you think about like where you are at this stage of your life as an author, a travel coach, a mother, an expat, a Black woman, wife, maybe a sibling, daughter, just so many. I wonder at this point, when you think about it, which of those identities do you think is the most salient, or the one that tends to come to the forefront more frequently?
I would say just the expat part of me. I'm a Sagittarius, for those of you who are into the zodiac. So
I wonder, like, what does that even mean? As a therapist,
I'm a traveler by nature. It's part of my makeup. It's part of who I am. And I've always actually found myself gravitating towards other people. Like, most people will say, "Oh, are you Jamaican, or are you this?" I'm like, "No, but I have Jamaican friends, or I have Bayesian friends, or I have Hispanic friends." I can always pass and always blend in. And I've always just kind of been attracted to exploring and traveling. So the part of me that stands out the most would be the expat, or the traveler.
I love that. So you literally just gave me the title for this episode. Y'all be on it, and I'll be listening.
I'm trying to keep things flowing.
Trust me, it won't be hard. If one thing's gonna happen, we're gonna have a good conversation.
Okay.
So, can you share with us, in addition to like being the traveler, the explorer, as pretty much at this age, like the salient identity that you find yourself connecting to? I'm wondering, how did you get into, expat, nomad? I think they're different, but are they?
I would say to each his own. I've actually declared myself as a nomad in myself, because I've traveled, even being in the States. I'm originally from New York, but I went to Atlanta, stayed there for a year. Then my husband and I moved to Cleveland, Ohio. Then we moved back. So I would say that nomad part is in me, because I love to travel and want to be that expat. I think it's just kind of like ingrained in me, but maybe it's a difference for another person, whatever their truth may be in that regard.
Yeah. You know what? I said this in the last interview that I conducted with a gentleman, I think Donald. He is a New Yorker who transplanted to Atlanta. And when I lived in Atlanta, when I first graduated from University of Texas, I cannot tell you the scores of New Yorkers that moved from New York and found themselves in Georgia. I was like, what is the pipeline? Because it has to be something.
Yeah, something on the Underground Railroad is like, y'all come on down. Because I'm actually I'm from Rochester, New York, which is upstate. Okay. So and in Atlanta, right. Even in Atlanta, I found Rochesterians. I'm like, wait a minute, you're from
That's cool.
And it's so crazy. So whatever that pipeline is, that whoever gave the hooty-hoo to come on down from New York to Atlanta, it's definitely thriving. You can see a lot of us there, and people move for different reasons. I went for college per se, and maybe somebody else go for something else. But yeah, Atlanta seems to be the hot spot.
Girl, it is. And I need people to stop moving to Houston, because we are full. Like,
y'all got all that land. Y'all got plenty of land down there. Okay?
If the state government stop acting foolish, then
right, absolutely.
That's a whole nother conversation. I'm curious about, how did you and your family choose Merida as your location of choice?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. It was kind of crazy. We chose Merida because, well, in 2020, we all was in a whole pandemic, parallelogram, whatever you want to call it.
And me,
And right, we had just had our second daughter, and I was like, I'm tired of being quarantined. I need to live my life. I don't want to live like this. Who wants to live in quarantine? So I started researching where we could go as a family. And we had traveled before, but I was looking for a place that obviously had great healthcare, that was kind of close to the US, whose numbers for COVID were really low, because we actually were blessed. We hadn't had COVID the entire time, still hadn't had it. So those were factors into where we were looking. And Mexico kept showing up on the list for healthcare since our daughters were so young and I had just had a baby. I did some more research on Mexico. I just kind of had a conversation with one of my friends, and she was like, my mom lives in Mexico. And I'm like, really? And she's like, yeah, she lives in Merida. And I was like, let me talk to your mom. Wow. And I chatted with her, and she was like, you know what? I love it out here. It's safe. I've had, she had, lupus, and she was saying how she didn't have good health care in the States as a vet. And she had found a great, doctor here in Merida that was able to take care of her. And she just raved about Merida. And I was like, you know what? I told my husband, I was like, there's two places I want to be, either Merida, Mexico or Guadalajara, Mexico. And after that conversation with her, we was like, we're going to go to Merida. We hadn't seen it. Yeah. We didn't come on vacation. We were like, we want to leave. We sold all of our stuff. We was like, this is what it's going to be.
Love it.
If it don't work out, we can come back across the border, but we're going to put our all into it, and we're still here.
So how long has it been since y'all been there?
It's been 2 years. So I would say, well, we came in 2020. We stayed in 2022. Unfortunately, my mother-in-law passed. And then that's when we went to Cleveland, but then we came right back at the beginning of 2023.
Wow.
Yes.
We all have our varying reasons for wanting to make that location shift. And just to hear you sharing that a US vet,
right,
able to attain her duly earned amazing healthcare in the States, but was able to connect with resources, somebody that does good work in another country. It pains me to hear that, but I'm very happy that she's found herself in a place where she's cared for. I'm sure she has community. And she's able to get more of us over there, because I know I'll be telling everybody I know, like, have you considered living abroad?
For sure. Absolutely. That's part of my business. Once, because we came abroad and we've had such a luxurious experience, I'm telling other people, and my family is like, oh, are you sure you're going to go with kids? Like, why you want to go with your kids? You should be here. You should stay. And I'm like, no, my kids having a great experience. My kids will be bilingual. Like, there's just so many benefits. So I love to share the story and to encourage other women to do so.
Yeah. I'm always curious about things. Think about, making this move as a mom.
Yeah.
What shifts have you noticed in, like, your level of, like, worry and fear and hope when it comes to, like, the life that you all are providing for your kids?
That's a great question. And each family is going to have to sit down and figure out what works for them. But for us, because our children are very small, our oldest daughter is 5. Our next daughter is 3 years old, and our youngest is 10 months. So you have to weigh whatever works for your family, whether your kids are older or younger. But for us, safety is the biggest thing. So you always want to be somewhere safe where you don't have to look over your shoulder or worry about if your children are going to have a rough experience. The second thing is cost of living, okay? Because nothing is free. You can find it cheap, but it won't be free. And cost of living is a big deal depending on your family size. You got to know how to budget and know how your money is going to stretch. And then the third thing would be the healthcare. Again, my girls are young. They are vaccinated as far as like getting their scheduled vaccinations. And that was something that was important to me. I'm like, where can I go that the vaccines will line up with the vaccines that we have in the States? And that was one of the determining factors for us. And Mexico has just been it for us.
Yeah. How do you like, I'm so excited because at some point, I think I'd like to have a family. And
oh, yes.
I know that living internationally is definitely going to be a part of my existence. I can't imagine being, now I love America, don't get me wrong. And like baseball says, as an American, I have the right to criticize her as much as I want. But it's like, I hear you sharing like the considerations and the intentionality behind these things have to be present in order for this move to make sense as you know, for our family, right? And I'm wondering, like, I know maybe it's not the right question to say extrapolate you from your family. No, your family is always a consideration because as a mother, you're it. And that is no shade against dads at all, but mama's just hit different, let's just be honest.
Absolutely, it is. That's just how it is, unfortunately.
When you think about your community that you've been able to develop as a woman, right? As an entrepreneur, as a woman that exists with all these different identities, what have you noticed like you've needed to care for yourself and that you've been able to find in Mexico, in Merida especially?
I think that's a pretty valid question. And I also talk about that in chapter 4 of my book, Merida and Me. And it talks about expat community and finding your tribe. So I will always say every individual, every mother's needs are different. So it just depends on what you need. But for me, I've been able to utilize all of the social medias, like the Facebook, like WhatsApp. Like there's other groups and resources out there for you to find community. So it's not as scary as you may think it would be. But you can just look on Facebook, Black people in Merida, mothers in Merida. You can look on YouTube, you know, single mothers in Merida, because that's what I did. I wanted to figure out what the experience was going to be like with me and my children. So I just went on YouTube, Black mothers in Mexico, and see which part they were in, listen to how they were doing in school, how the, how the locals treated them. And that I just followed the trail. When I went in Facebook groups, I'd find specifically mothers in the place where I was, join the group. Usually there, you exchange numbers and then you start meeting up. For example, here in Merida, I'm in the Brothers and Sisters in Merida group on Facebook. And then there's also a WhatsApp group. And within the WhatsApp group, there's a subgroup. And it's a group and it's like mothers with children ages 0 to 3 or children 12 to 16 or something like that. And you join those groups and then you just kind of meet that way. And you won't mesh well with everyone, but the ones that you do link with, then you kind of form your tribe that way. And which is what I've done. Also, just meeting people in the street, like going to the grocery store or going out to eat with my husband. You're like, I always say, is that melanin over there? Because from afar, a lot of the Mexicans here
look like us.
Yeah. So I tell my husband, I'm like, is that melanin over there?
Right.
And he's like, it is. And I'm like, hi. And if I say it in English and they say hi back, then I know it's a thing. Because I did play myself. I said hi, I went up to this beautiful Black lady. I was like, oh my gosh, hey girl, I love your hair. She was like, ¿Cómo? I was like, she was from Colombia. So she was a beautiful chocolate lady. But she was like, I don't speak no English. What you talking about? What you talking about?
But just everywhere.
Right. Being natural, using your social media, and then just finding people in a natural setting, I would say.
Okay, I appreciate that. And we're definitely going to give you an opportunity to kind of give us some details on the book, how we can get it, the research as far as, helping to soften the landing for other people that are considering moving to Mexico or Merida especially. But I really appreciate, social media is a behemoth that, if used well,
Right.
and really aid your life. And just listening to the different types of groups that you've been able to find entrance into, especially for us as like expats, nomads, study abroad, those who are aspiring, like the internet, social media, chat rooms, WhatsApp, expat app, Basha. So you're on expat?
I am.
Perfect. Like these tools have taken a seemingly difficult process, and I'm not going to take away from the fact that it's a lot to process and work through, but it has taken the world and made it, I think, smaller, manageable, and more
accessible. Absolutely. And just piggybacking off of that, and once you get in the realm of, okay, I'm in this expat group on let's say WhatsApp, then other people will say, oh, you need to join this, or I'm in this. Did you know about, like you said, expat app? And you're like, no, what's that? Oh, let me see the link to join. And then you find other either events, activities, other people that either ask you questions. That's what I love about expat group. I've had some private messages and people are like, oh, what was your time like in Colombia? Like, oh, I'm going to Cartagena and I want to know, what the experience was like. And then you make a friend that way. And one of the girls who messaged me on that app, when she went to Colombia, I checked in on her, just like, oh, did you get to Colombia? She's like, oh, I love it out here. Like, I see, like, if you go to Cartagena is another place, you'll just see so many beautiful brown people, and you just blend right in. The only difference is they speak Spanish.
Yo puedo hablar español, so that is my minor at university. So I'm just like, send me to all the Spanish speaking or Romance language countries. So
right, absolutely, I love that.
I think that is so intriguing. So I consider individuals like you and myself to be conduits of community, right? Yes. And when I say, I need to write that down because I just be thinking of it.
Okay, come on,
word. Like a conduit of community. I mean that we are in the business of sharing accurate information, like the good, the bad, the realistic, and help people to connect with individuals that will help them to like realize like their travel goals, travel dreams, living internationally, and doing that in a community sense. Like it's really difficult to do it individually because everything that we've said to this point has been about connecting, right? Connecting and making sure that you're sharing, again, accurate information, making sure that you're open to different perspectives, and that you're doing your due diligence. So I'm curious to know, please share, like, how has making the decision to ask someone about Mexico, then make the plan to move to Merida, to be there for over 2 years, to have to leave because of a family tragedy, but then make the decision to return. Like, how do you believe that this has like shifted your perspective and your priorities?
Okay, thank you. I would say, all the factors that tie into that would just be your research, giving your research and then your determination to move. Like for us, it was all or nothing. I was very determined to raise my children in a place where they could be free, where they would have no hindrances. And I also wanted them to be able to get into nature, spend time in the sun and outside. And unfortunately, we were in Atlanta at the time. We didn't have the freedom to do that during the pandemic. We were just on our patio looking outside at the trees like, I wish I could touch a tree. But I want to play outside. But just having the freedom to do so. And because Merida's numbers for COVID were so low, it was one of the biggest determining factors for us. And a lot of their I would say outside activities were open. Yes, you had to wear a mask, but there was still so many things that you could do as opposed to where we were in the States at the time. And then once we got out here, we just kind of fell in love. We fell in love with the community. We fell in love with how welcoming the locals were and how curious people were of us. No one has ever treated us any type of way or any way that was negative or something that felt off. Everything was like genuine curiosity and just very, very welcoming. And I think that once you find a place where you want to be, just go see how the experience is. And if you don't like it, you can always leave. That's one thing that my husband really loved about Mexico. He was like, if any big emergency, we can cross that border. You know, we could, Texas is an hour away, literally an hour on a plane. And he loved that that proximity to the US. That was for him. But for me, it was being able to experience life to the fullest. Like, I go outside in my garden. I love watering my plants. It makes me so happy. I didn't have no plants in Atlanta. I mean, that was just, we didn't have them. Not saying that I couldn't have them, but here I go out in my garden, water my plants, touch the trees, thank, the universe for just the opportunity to go off, and we come back. Sometimes my daughter, we have a pool, and in the front and in the back, we lay out our towels and then just kind of dry off in the sun. And my daughter thinks the best thing, but just having that slow pace, like enjoying life, being in nature is something that I didn't have in Atlanta. Everything was like, okay, we got to work, pick the kids up from daycare, come back, sleep, pack lunches, go to work, pick the kids up from daycare, that crazy hustle and bustle. And that was one of the things that I really love about being here. And I had that in the forefront of my mind. I want to be at peace. I want to slow down. And Merida has allowed me that opportunity.
I love that for you. Just listen, I connect to the whole point about just going out, watering plants. I am definitely a plant mom.
Yeah.
I wait to get back to my plants in Beijing. I hope that they are all alive.
Yes, they will be fine.
I've been asking her to go back every week, water my babies. If I come back, I'm going to be devastated. But it sounds to me like you and your family have, through this decision, chosen to engage in a slower pace of life, gives you the opportunity to be more present, being outside more, which is definitely good for everyone's mental health, really just connected with one another and like that you find yourself in. And I'm so happy about that for you.
Thank you.
I also want, what do you think have been some of the challenges with adjusting? Because I know that everything's not great, right? But challenges in perspective, right? I think it's subjective. But what have been some adjustment challenges that you recognize you and your family have had to come to terms with, as far as being Americans, with as much access as we have to things, and then moving to a different country?
Good question. I would say some of the obvious questions that we run into are the language barrier. For me, I already spoke Spanish before I came here because I learned Spanish in school. Plus, I lived a year in Colombia. So my Spanish was more... No, thanks. My Spanish was more developed, but I have seen the challenges that my children have had wanting to communicate and play with kids, because at first everyone's curious. They come over and assume that you speak the language. And then when you don't, it's like, okay, what do we do now? But I found myself translating for my daughter. And then now she's at a point where she can just introduce herself. She's like, hola, ¿cómo se llama? Me llamo Johnny. ¿Quieres jugar conmigo? Like, she will ask you, do you want to play? And at first, if she was really sad, she'd be like, Mommy, they don't want to play with me, or they don't understand me, or I don't know what they're saying, those type of frustrations. But aiding, just helping her through the process, saying, oh, it's okay, don't worry, you'll get better, or translating for her, talking to the mom, or just talking to the child to help ease the process for her. So that's obviously the biggest challenge, is the language barrier. And another thing, for those, when you do come over here, understand that a lot of the luxuries that you have in your country, you may not have access to that in whatever country you chose. Like, for instance, in our house here, we don't have a dryer. And for someone, that may be a deal breaker. But I don't mind putting my clothes on the line. At first, I'm like, ooh, family of 5, washing all the clothes, put them on the line, put them away. But it's become part of the routine that it's really nothing. Right. Actually, I don't even fold my clothes. I take them off the line and I just toss them in the kids' drawers, like boom, boom, boom. But you get used to it. Yeah. In this particular house, we don't have a dishwasher, but you wash them by hand. And we have been been blessed enough to have a housekeeper who helps me to keep things, but I feel like that's part of the trade-off. So you may not have the dryer, the dishwasher, you may not have, the car active to like maybe public transportation, but then there's different trade-offs. You get to walk more and lose weight. Yeah. You get to, right. You get to learn things about yourself that you didn't know that you were able to do, because I was kind of deterred about having to put the clothes on the line, but this Mexican sun dries my clothes so fast.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. So just adjusting. So the language barrier, also not being afforded some of the luxuries that you have in the US. But those challenges can be minor if you come with an open mind and say, you know what, I'm in this for the long haul. Then those things, you'll forget about those challenges.
Yeah, and so I'm glad that you just shared. Like, I don't have a dryer in Beijing, and by the grace of God, I've been able to afford an IE to take care of certain things at home that I don't necessarily have the time or the time, most likely, to attend. Right. There is something that I've told myself is I am not trying to perform superwomanhood to anybody. If I have the luxury to be able to help somebody else through a job and being able to support the lifestyle that I know I'm trying to live, I will do that. I am not going ragged, overextending myself because I want to do it all. And at one point in my life, I was like, yeah, I need to do that. I got to let people know this Black woman, no, I am trying to be healed and helpful. So I like something that you shared, open mind. Tell me how being open-minded and accepting, like acceptance and being willing and open-minded are all like the same side of the same coin when it comes to choosing to live somewhere else and being able to have a quality experience. Wondering, how do you know if you were to talk with somebody, which being a travel coach, I'm sure this comes up in your conversations.
Absolutely.
What are tips that you give people when it comes to adjusting, when it comes to being open-minded and accepting of the environment that you find yourself in?
Absolutely. Great question. Just like with your self-care, you have to get rid of all the past, all the negative, all the old things that weighed you down. You have to get rid of that and free yourself of that, and to say, you know what, I'm putting me first. My peace is first. I'm going to forget about what, whoever told me that I shouldn't have time for myself. Even with moving abroad, put away all of those negative things that someone told you who's never left the country, who don't have a passport, who never left their city. You have to get rid of all those things that they told you and tell yourself, I'm going to try something new. When a challenge comes my way, I'm going to meet that challenge. I'm going to hop over that challenge or break through that challenge and get to the other side. So letting yourself know, I can do this, have no fear, and be accepting to whatever the result is going to be. Like, for example, we have our expat community here, but we also have our local community here. Okay. And I love being in the local community. I'm in a WhatsApp group with everyone who speaks Spanish. I'm the only person who speaks English there. But we organize activities together. We have our children's birthday parties together. Sometimes we carpool to maybe the beach or something, or whoever wants to organize something. And it's a great opportunity. Sometimes I'm lost in the conversation. I don't know what's going on, right. But I'll kiki, real quick, and then throw my own subject out there to talk about. But just having no fear, being open-minded to something new, and not limiting yourself, basically, not limiting yourself to what you used to do or what you're accustomed to. If you're in a new place, learn new customs. Throw those old ones away and then build your new ones. Like for me and my family, I plan to build new traditions with our family. And I tell my husband that we're going to build new traditions with our family this year, because we lost Gma. We lost her last year. Every year on her birthday, we are going to go release butterflies. That's something we never did, but she loved butterflies. And that's a new tradition that we decided that we're going to implement. Having a new tradition here. Yes. It's hot here in Mexico. I had to get used to that everyone goes to the park at night. My kids are young, so I like to have them in the bed at a certain time. But because I do want them to play with other kids, we go to the park at night at 6 o'clock, play for a little bit, mix and mingle with the, the locals, exchange numbers, and, make play dates. And then we come home, and then people know us. That's Journey, or that's Journey's mom, that's Gita's mom, just having an open mind to trying something new that you may not have wanted to or may have said no to. You just try it to see if you like it. And again, if you don't like it, you're not married to any one idea. Right. You can say, oh, I tried that and I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, listen, I love it. So one of the things that I think I appreciate the most is that you're making an intentional and an active effort to immerse yourself in the local community, to have your daughter, you said Journey and Jada?
Yes, all J's, Journey, Jada.
Oh, Journey, Jada, and Justin, so cute. But for them, like, that helps to build empathy. That helps them to, one, have a strong identity formation for themselves, yes, and then be able to be open to the cultures and experiences and traditions that other people have as well. And I'm sure that they're getting that at school. Yes. I work in a school in Beijing, at an international school in Beijing, and I know how challenging it can be for Black kids in international school environment. But I also recognize, as I'm thinking about it, being a Black going on the way to being bilingual, because they're going to be fully bilingual, give it a few years.
Yes.
And really having a strong sense of themselves, but being open to a worldwide community is going to pay off in spades for the of who they become as people. So I recognize you and your husband did this, as an upgrade in life, but I'm also really grateful for you all being able to give this gift to your kids, children, because I wish more of our people recognize that it's not as challenging as it may look. And I always caution folks, we want to share, the process that we're going through, the thinking, the decision-making process. But everybody's advice ain't good advice. And you said like, I'm not taking advice about moving abroad from anybody. One, you ain't travel nowhere. Two, you too scared to go to the next state.
Right.
And you engage in a lot of self-limiting beliefs. So I'm curious, as a mom, I go back to these identities that you find yourself living in. I want to kind of shift into like a mental health conversation. Everything that you're saying is a mental health conversation, because I can hear the enjoyment in your voice, smile on your face as you talk about like that increased sense of safety. And I know what that does to people, or I have an idea, right? How do you believe that you've benefited like psychologically since embarking on this part of your journey?
I think it's been a great psychological benefit for me, just because we're focused on the mental health, opening my mind, allowing me to learn myself. Okay, what are some of my triggers? Learning who I am, just before I am a mom, I'm Tia. I'm an individual. So learning the things that make me tick in each country. There's some things that I like and some things that I didn't like. The things that the things that I accepted or found acceptable, I may not find that to be my same story as a mom now. Like before, when my first time I left the country, I went to Colombia, and I was a single person then. And I did a whole bunch of stuff that I wouldn't do now as a mom. I have different worries. Like here, like you said, like I mentioned, safety. Our house is, it's gated. And I love that. I just send the kids outside, I'm like, go. And I know that they're safe. Whereas opposed to if I was by myself, I'd probably be somewhere in a condo, like without a gate. Like just a completely different scene. But for me, the mental aspect of it is just having that peace of mind, knowing that wherever I am, I'm going to be safe. I'm accepted. Sometimes I encounter situations that, challenge me as an individual. For example, like when the neighborhood kids come over my house and play, and my door is usually always open, which is fine, but they don't speak Spanish. And sometimes they will fight the kids. They're just young kids. They'll fight. They'll have like a little spat and someone's crying. And it's like, okay, now I have to soothe everybody, but also translate everything and calm everything down. So it's like, okay, what happened? She hit me. No poner tus manos en ella. You know, like it's just like going back and forth. And I'm also dealing with this too. So it's like managing yourself, knowing your triggers, having a sense of peace of mind, knowing like, okay, I'm gonna be open to this. I'm going to understand that I'm growing and learning every day. Every situation is going to be a new one. I'm just going to accept the challenge as it goes and try to be a better person at the end of it.
Listen, I love it, especially with us translate these little spats between the kiddos. You know, how do you, when you think about like healing is always a part of a conversation that I like to incorporate into these or aspect of the conversation, especially when I talk to women and especially when I talk to moms. For some reason. And I'm wondering what is your understanding of healing? How has it transitioned at this phase of your life? Why, you know, after you've made this move?
Yes. For healing, for me, it's finding myself and being okay with it. Because I found myself, you know, being in the States, not necessarily working for everybody, but just like upholding the expectation, being the oldest of 5, always have been successful, having a pretty great degree. I'm that strong friend that everybody tells you to check on that nobody checks on.
Tell me about it.
So healing for me is understanding who I am as an individual, knowing my triggers, knowing the things that make me happy. I did not know that watering my plants outside made me so happy. I'm like smiling, watering plants, talking to the plants, touching them. Like, you know, I'm like, this makes me feel good. It makes me feel happy. And to me, that's what healing is, understanding who you are as an individual and accepting it. Whether there's some parts of you that you don't like, you say, okay, I don't like this part of me, but I'm willing to be open to grow from that part. Or I love this part about myself and I want to share it with others, or I want to express that part of me more. Like that's what healing means to me.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. It's kind of like an ongoing, a fluctuating understanding of who you are at this phase in your life, right?
Yeah.
Healing in one stage, maybe before motherhood, looks very different than at this stage of your life. And, you know, I think with that comes an understanding of what does it mean to be vulnerable enough to engage in these new ways of being. That other people may not understand, but that you're really trying to explore as an explorer. So, can you share with us like some of the work that you're doing? I think it's vital for us to share with people that we can honestly make careers out of anything. And especially in this arena of like travel, expat life, being a nomad and things of that nature. And that it's not as far away, it's not as far removed from like our skills that we currently hold. I think it is. So it's kind of a bifurcated question, a 2-part question. How did you manifest, you know, the book that you've written, right? What is it, Merida and Me?
Yes.
And I'm wondering, what were some of the transferable skills that you used to become a travel coach?
Thanks. I did not think that I would have written a book. The only thing that prompted this is so many people kept asking me.
Right.
And people were like, you should do a vlog. I'm like, I don't want a camera. They're like, well, you should help me. I'm like, well, I'll help you. And then helping one person ended up helping other people. And then, when the first several people that I helped, I did not get paid to do it. But one of the ladies actually moved to Merida. And it was such an incredible story. I met her just in a mom's group. And she saw my post and then she DM'd me. And then we started talking. And then boom, and I never met her. And then when she came here, we linked up, we hugged her husband and my husband, her kids are older. But still, it was just such an incredible experience and such a great feeling to know to been able to have helped somebody like that. It was really great. And then I had another friend who's a flight attendant, and she's like, you should help other people. You should vlog. You should, make this something tangible for other people to learn. And at first I'm like, I don't know. But our first year here in Merida, we had so many great adventures, so many great experiences. I mean, I never had a nanny before. I never had a personal chef before. I'm like, wow, all these things that we can afford. We're like, this guy is the limit. I'm like, other people should have this too. But I can't be the only mom who needs a nanny, who needs a personal chef. I'm like, somebody else should do this. And just wanting to share those luxuries with other moms. Like, you could do it too. Like, the biggest thing too, obviously, is budgeting. And I know a lot of times our people fall below the gap when it comes to understanding finances. But I'm like, if you learn to budget, like, you could have a much better lifestyle. And then your money stretches further here in Mexico. So whatever that is, you're going to, whatever you're making in the United States, you're going to have much more affordability for different things here in Mexico. And that's the thing that inspired the book. In the book, I just talk about how, what were the deciding factors for our family to relocate abroad, why we chose Merida, how to find your community, some pros and cons, also how to budget. I put my expense report so people can see, because people want to know, how much is it going to cost me? Okay.
like the numbers.
Right. Tell me for real. Don't be telling me inflated stuff. I want to know what you're spending, and like I say in the book, it depends on your family size. At that time, we were a family of 4, but I put in the expenses. I put in what we were doing, my rent, my water, my girls' ballet, my groceries, all those things, my nanny, putting those expenses in and being real with people, understanding like, okay, what does your life look like where you are? Okay, because that's really what it's going to look like when you travel abroad, but being honest with yourself, saying, can you do this? What does that budget look like? Okay, let me help you and coach you through this process so that you get an understanding that you're going to have a different mindset when you come abroad. But if you choose to do so with that open mind, I guarantee you will have a much better experience than you would if you just keep living the way you are now.
Yeah, listen, I think the thing I appreciate the most is the honesty, right? And it's the practicality of knowing if we just take it down to the budget, the numbers will tell you, right, if this is a viable move for you or not. And you may notice that you're able to add a little bit more luxury than you can afford here in the United States. But that does come with some sacrifice. And people have to recognize that it's not all I get. You have to have, or at least I've noticed, there has to be a complete shift in the way that you're going to choose to live life. Like, what are your priorities? And I'm curious, when you're working with people, like coaching them, how do you help them to prioritize needs and wants?
We start with what their current needs are. If their needs are being met in the US or wherever country they are. I'm just going to say the US because that's where most people that I talk to are from. We're going to see what their needs are. What are you looking to get out of this? What are you currently doing with your family, whether you're family 2 or 4 or whatever? What are they? And then we go from there. Okay, what does your life look like if you had certain luxuries? Oh, if I had a nanny, I'd have more time for self-care. Okay, boom, let's make that a priority. Making sure that we have in the budget to get a nanny if that's what you need. Or, you know what, I want to be able to have somebody like, here, you can get personal chefs. I want a personal chef. All right, let's see what that would look like in the budget with your current income that you have. We can get a chef once a week, twice a week, like all week. It depends on what your needs are. You know what I mean? So we just kind of break down with a realistic goal of where you are, because there's no magic that you're going to be like, okay, I'm in Atlanta today, tomorrow I'm in Mexico and my life is great. No, because the mindset that you still have is going to be here. And if you not budget savvy, you're not going to be budget savvy here, because you're going to get more things. You're like, oh, I got a nanny, I got a housekeeper, I got a personal chef, I got a chauffeur, but then I ain't got no money to eat. No, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that you here, you have a great time, and you're doing it worry free, because you don't want to get more stress.
Listen, that is it. Don't add more stress to your life because you're more worried about, the Joneses and the appearance of I'm living my best life. Because again, for you to actually be in a space where you have reduced worry, not eliminated, we're not looking for elimination because that just doesn't happen, but you design a life that feels more like your own, where you have more freedom, where your money is used in a way that helps you to feel, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. Comfort, I guess you could say, right? Without the stress of having to be in the rat race.
Absolutely.
That requires you to like finagle things and move some things. And like you said, mindset has to change.
Yes. Absolutely. That mindset is a big factor. Just having that open mind to different things is what is going to afford you the luxuries that you so desire, whatever they may be. But you have to have that open mind. Say, for instance, if you want to live in a condo, that's fine. But if you want to live in a little casita where you paying $300 a month and then the rest of your, budget is going elsewhere where you just traveling around, you just use your house to sleep and then just traveling around. That may be your portion, but that also may not be. You may want to put your children in activities or you may not. It just depends on what you are and what your needs are.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I help people to recognize that we often have in these conversations is identify your priorities, like you shared. What are some of the motivating factors for you to make this move? And I always want people at the top of the list that because I am partial. Mental health. I need you to evaluate how is your mental health where you currently are. How do you want it to be? Right. And to journal about that process of what they notice, how they're shifting, holistically, right? Are your worries less, right? Are you more able to notice how you're feeling in these new environments? Do you feel more grounded? Do you feel more centered and connected? Because that's going to help us heal as a people. And I think the examples that we're leading will help other people recognize, like, now I know her and I know what she's been through. And now I see her over here living like this. Like, how do I get some of what it is that she's got?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's again that self-care, that mental health, prioritizing yourself, spending time and saying, you know what, I am important. As a mother, we get so carried away with the kids and the husband, if you have, or if you're a single mom, you get carried away in being both parents and you have no time for self. But prioritizing yourself, learning yourself. I know that's kind of cliche. Everyone says that, like, I know me. No, but there's different parts of you that you hide that no one else knows, that you feel uncomfortable with. And you need to learn that and be okay with it, expose it, or, get rid of it, heal from it, whatever it is. Prioritize your individual self before you take care of your kids, before you figure out what's for dinner, before all of those things. That's going to be the determining factor. And I've had to learn that too. Like, my husband would be like, she's busy. She's always busy. She's always doing something. And he's always telling me to relax. I'm like, no, but I had a client who asked me this and I have to research this. So I have to learn that. I had to learn that on my own too and implement that. So those one of the things is just taking care of self.
Yeah, I have just a few more questions, but I have this one quote that I want to read, and you tell me what comes up for you when you hear it. As a Black woman, it feels like an act of resistance to have an intentional life, to say that my life is going to be meaningful. I wonder when you hear that, like, what comes up for you?
Man, it just shows me the struggles that we have, as a Black woman. It shows me the weight. It tells me about the weight that we have as a Black woman. Before we are, I say that all the time, before we are a mom, before we are a daughter, before we are a wife, we are ourselves. And a lot of times we get the short end of the stick, unfortunately. A lot of times that happens to us. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel You know, if we so choose, you know, it starts with us as the individual. If we so choose to prioritize our mental health, to prioritize our self-love, then we can change the trajectory of things for us. And that's the things that come to mind when I hear that beautiful quote.
Well, thank you for that. I think some of the things that you shared are some of the more challenging things for us to do. I think I'm wondering, as a through line for most Black women's lived experiences as we've been, raised, is to be selfless, to care for other people before us, right? To be seen and not heard, because we don't want to be seen as angry or aggressive. So really not living in as authentically as we can, because we are so afraid of being branded as the thing that the world has branded us as, right? We're literally the mule of the world, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
I'm like, hell no, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm not about to do all these things at the service of other people. And then I'm falling, between the cracks and mentally unwell and not feeling happy and fulfilled and depressed and anxious. So I think as we begin to make these really intentional decisions about leaving or setting boundaries, really walking into the life that feels like home for us, we're turning so many things on its head, and I'm loving that for us.
Yes.
I want to know, at this stage, what do you feel like you're most proud of?
I am most of others. Like, I don't think that I would have been able to coach.
Tia, repeat that because it broke up. I can edit it out.
Okay.
Can you repeat that because it broke up?
Yeah. I would say at this stage in my life, I'm most proud of being able to help others, because I don't think that I would have been able mentally. I don't think I would have been in a space to help other people do this. And I think that because I've given myself the opportunity and the space to heal, to prepare myself, because when you're dealing with other people's energies, you have to prepare yourself. And I've given myself the space to prepare for this. I'm most proud to be able to genuinely help other women to relocate abroad, even if we just take a look at your finances to get a budget in place and to give you a future launch. Some people need more time before they can relocate. Some people are more ready now. They just need that accountability push. But I'm most proud to be able to afford myself the space and the heart to be able to help other women relocate abroad with their children. I know a lot of times people have like, oh, I wish I could do this, but I have kids. Like, it's a hindrance, but it's not. It's the mindset. It is the mindset of how you look at your limitabilities with your children. So I would say that's one of the things that I'm most proud of.
I really appreciate that. Really just helping to open the door for other people to see that this too can be for you. And again, one of the key things is, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't mean it's not for you. It might mean that there's a little bit more tweaking that needs to happen, and maybe there's a different environment in the world that's better suited for you. Like, I've been in Beijing for 5 years, and it has been a strategic decision for sure at the current job that I'm in, but I don't necessarily like living in Beijing. However, I know with this last year, me being there, I'm going to do my very best to parlay it into a whole host of other connections, and then to recognize that I don't have to stay somewhere because the money is great when my mental health isn't where I need it to be.
Right.
Money anywhere, right? But are you living a life, again, that feels like your own? So I really want people to take away from this conversation that if you just remove emotion from it as much as possible and look at it objectively, there are millions of individuals that are living like us. Why would you not be able to do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually, the thing that sparked in my mind was, I was back in college, and I graduated college in 2009. But in 2007, I was working on a project with one of the girls in my group. And she was like, oh yeah, when I lived in Nicaragua, and now she was a white girl. She's like, when I lived in Nicaragua, I was like, when did you live in Nicaragua? She's like, oh, when I was 9 years old, my mom moved to Nicaragua. And I was like, doing what? And she was like, teaching English. Yeah. And I was like, wow, if they can do it, we can do it too.
Yep. And they do. They do, yes. Right? And
they take the kids and go and live
a heartbeat. And I'll say this, one of the things that I've recognized about, you know, Black people and other people of the global majority, when we move to these different countries, we intentionally endeavor to connect to the local community. We're not trying to extrapolate things from so that we can live our pristine existence. Now, some of us not get, you know, twisted. Everybody ain't the same. But if I'm thinking more holistically, we tend to want to make a connection to the community that we're in, give back to that community as they are blessing us in return. And I have lots of friends as educators abroad, and I tell people all the time, you have transferable skills. If you work in education, go abroad.
Yes.
I'm really grateful for this conversation. Like, you know, can you share with us if there's any last thing that you'd like the audience to know in regards to getting started with this process? What would you offer?
If you want to get started with relocating abroad and you have children, I would say reach out to me. You can connect with me via my email, or you can give me a call. Also, I'm on TikTok and Facebook, like all of those things. You can, if you need help, get in contact with me. There's all DIY processes for you to do it yourself if you want to. But if you're that type of person where you're like, I want to do it, but I really ain't gonna do it because I don't have anybody keeping me accountable, then reach out to me because I will be your accountability partner. And just piggybacking off what you said, if you have the skill in education, go. I taught English for 2 years abroad and loved it. I love how much other countries value educators. So if you can educate someone else, if you just know English and you want to teach English, that's a great foot in the door for you to leave. There's countries that'll pay for you to come over. And they'll give you housing. Okay, so there's no excuse. There's no excuse. And that, I would say that would be like my little tidbit to get someone to start this process.
Yeah, you know, just piggybacking off of that, you know, for those who don't know, I'm a counselor in China. China is not the easiest place to live. I'm not even gonna lie to you. As a single Black woman, it's doubly hard. However, I'm blessed to have been able to work in schools that cover my housing. They cover insurance. They cover travel to China and from. If I'm coming back to the United States in the summertime, I'm sure there's other stuff, you know, all the medical insurance. I'm trying to think of all the amenities and stuff. And again, it is a sacrifice. I am not going to say there's not a sacrifice. I am 13 hours away when it comes to, like, if I want to call somebody. It's not a direct flight, but hey, I can do a 16-hour layover in Amsterdam again. I ain't tripping. So one of the things I really want people to recognize that is this can happen for you too. You just got to sit down and get real about yourself. Like, is this the life that I want to continue to live? If it's working, great. But if you want to see the world, travel, grow in your profession, grow in your skills, improve your mental health, this is at your doorstep. And there are people here, Tia is one of them, that can help
absolutely
the process. And it's absolutely like, what's stopping you?
You have no excuse. You have no excuse to have a better life and better opportunity for you and your children. Children are not a hindrance if you want to travel abroad. You can bring them with you. You could homeschool them. You can put them in private school. I can help you through that entire process. So yes.
So tell us your social media handles that will be included in the show notes as well.
Okay, absolutely. Well, if you want to follow me and see what it's like living abroad here in Mexico, you can follow me on TikTok at tia.savonne. Also, Casa Travel, that's the name of the business that I have. Also, send me an email. It's info.travelcoachtia@gmail.com. I can provide you all the information that you need. Also, my website is also travelcoachtia.com. Super easy. You can download a free travel guide. And it'll help you start the process, tell you the things that you need for one. And if you need more in-depth get my book. Merida and Me tells you everything that I've done, how to relocate, how to sell your stuff, how to choose the country, all of that. And you can get that. We'll put the link down because it's on Gumroad. But yeah, all of those ways you can reach me, and I'm more than happy to help you all with your relocation process.
Awesome, Tia. Thank you so much for
and
sharing and giving us this information and helping people to recognize it is not as far removed as you once thought it may be.
Yes.
So for everybody that's watching, I told you it was going to be another great episode, and I never lie. I want to thank you for tuning into the Black Expat Experience. Once again, I encourage you to keep taking risks, impacting your communities, and as always, make sure you prioritize your mental health, okay? Our growth is dependent upon your support, so please share the episodes in your community. If you have any questions, send us emails, share in your social media. We have so much more good content and great stories to bring to the community. And with that, I'm going to say thank you once again for joining us. And thank you, Tia, for joining us today and sharing about your journey.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.